Hello folks, this is going to be our first YouTube Bible study. Sorry we aren't going to have our normal interactions, but we're still doing this remotely. We just got the announcement today that a number of colleges are completing either remotely or send people home to have them done there. So, this is getting more serious now, but let's not focus too much on that. I'm going to get into the reading of the Word. Today we're going to look at Daniel chapter 6, and I'm going to go over that chapter. So let me open us up with some prayer. Dear Lord, I thank you for everybody who has gotten to read this online. There are countries where this can't be done because your name is persecuted. I ask that you would guide the speaker and the listeners of this tonight as they watch this on YouTube. And I ask that you would get this coronavirus under control and that souls will be saved as a result of it and that people will be protected. Please guide us all to that secret place that you want us, as you described in Psalm 91, the secret place of the Most High, wherever you want us to be, when you want us to be there, and help us to be tuned to your Spirit to know where that is. In Jesus' name, amen. So Daniel chapter 6, I'm going to just read the entire chapter, and then I'm going to explain it bit by bit. For now, I'm actually going to read parts of it and then stop and explain. All right, so chapter 6, starting with verse 1. It pleased Darius to appoint 120 satraps to rule throughout the kingdom, with 3 administrators over them, one of whom was Daniel. The satraps were made accountable to them, so that the king might not suffer loss. Okay, this is a management mistake on the part of Darius here. Darius was the one who appointed the 120 satraps, and then he appoints 3 people over each of them. The much better way to do this would have been to appoint the 3 commissioners and have them pick people who they trust and then start the tree branching further out as they go down, because that's generally what managers do. You have a store manager who hires the employees in there. Some of them even have an HR person do that. And then as you move up, you have a district manager, at least when I worked at Lowe's, who would oversee a district, and then a regional manager. You know, the district manager would hire your store managers, regional manager might hire your district managers, then you have your CEO. That's generally the smarter way to do it, because when people surround themselves with the ones they're the most familiar with and they trust most, it's a much smoother process. So you basically set these guys up to have people who they didn't know, knowing them, pointed over them, and then it was not as smooth of a process. And so you've already got a setup for a problem right here, but then things get even worse. Well, at least to a point in one area. So Daniel got to be one of the 3 highest ones, so that's a huge honor to him. He was a Hebrew, he was loyal to Nebuchadnezzar. Darius evidently heard about it, saw how he distinguished himself, so he gave him one of those top 3. It's a high honor, but then it gets even better and worse for Daniel. Now Daniel so distinguished himself among the administrators and the satraps by his exceptional qualities that the king, some people say exceptional qualities, some versions say exceptional spirit. Okay, now Daniel so distinguished himself among the administrators and the satraps by his exceptional qualities that the king planned to set him over the whole kingdom. At this, the administrators and the satraps tried to find grounds for charges against Daniel in his conduct of government affairs, but they were unable to do so. They could find no corruption in him, because he was trustworthy and neither corrupt nor negligent. Wow. Okay, now let's think this through for a minute. Darius was so pleased with Daniel's conduct and handling of affairs that he was going to make him the second in command of the kingdom, above the other 3. Or actually the other 2 commissioners and the 120 satraps. Wow. Pretty big honor. You can tell they just love that, don't they? They got to find grounds to take him down because they wanted that position. And keep something else in mind. Daniel had a long history here. Some believe he was kidnapped and taken to Babylon at about 14 years of age, give or take a couple of years. he's starting his training then. And from there, he goes up to become a big leader to Nebuchadnezzar, and then briefly for King Belshazzar, now King Darius. So, Daniel potentially had about a 50-year history, at least 40-year history or longer in government affairs. He'd be an old guy at this point. That's a lot of time for him to make mistakes. Now, it doesn't say that Daniel was sinless. In fact, Daniel says, confessing, praying for our sins, which included his. So Daniel was not sinless. Only one person had that. His name was Jesus Christ, God in human flesh. But it says that they could find nothing. They looked and could find nothing to take him down with as far as the way he handled things in the government. It says they could find no corruption in him because he was trustworthy and neither corrupt nor negligent. So that's incredible. So they found no action of even negligence to prove he was unqualified to take him down. Finally, these men said, "We will never find any basis for charges against this man Daniel unless it has something to do with the law of his God." So they knew Daniel couldn't be taken down with anything he did wrong in his government dealings, but they knew he's loyal to his God. Here's how we take him down. We got to make him pick between being loyal to his God or being loyal to the king. And they knew Daniel was going to be loyal to God over the king. This is a huge compliment to his character. They knew he was that loyal to his God. Yeah, that's a good question. How well do people know your character? Do your friends, your co-workers know that you're that loyal to God? That's something we should all think about in our characters. Like, how loyal are we to God? Do other people see this? So the administrators and the satraps, it doesn't say how many, but it says, it implies all of them, or at least a pretty good number of them. So the administrators and the satraps went as a group to the king and said, "O King Darius, live forever. The royal administrators, prefects, satraps, advisors, and governors have all agreed that," okay, very obvious lie here. Okay, Daniel was one of these governors. He was not consulted. Guaranteed. Guaranteed he's not here. Should have been a red flag to King Darius. It doesn't say that Darius did a head count of everybody who was there, so he probably didn't. We don't even know if all the satraps were consulted. My guess is the satraps were wanting to be promoted to commissioner at some point, so they may or may not have had this level of anger towards Daniel. We don't know. All their hearts, at least. Okay? The governors have all agreed that the king should issue an edict and enforce the decree that anyone who prays to any god or man during the next 30 days, except you, O king, yeah, there it is, just stroking his ego, shall be thrown into the lion's den. Now, I've seen a number of depictions of this. Some people have said, hey, we're going to give you the option of being a priest in addition to the king. How many dictators have wanted to control religion along with other political affairs? And now I'm going to read the rest of this. Now, king, issue the decree and put it in writing so that it cannot be altered in accordance with the laws of the Medes and Persians, which cannot be repealed. Okay, now this is an interesting point. I did some research on this. The Medes and Persians believed that rulers could hear from the gods that they worshipped. And if a king believed he had heard from the god and that the gods could do no wrong, they would give his will to the king. Then the king would sign this thing, making it irrevocable, saying, I heard this from the gods, I know it's right, so I'm signing something that means I can't even strike it away myself. They wanted to make this serious because I guarantee you they knew that as soon as Darius found this out, he wasn't going to be happy. They knew he liked Daniel, and he'd want to save him, so they had to carefully trick him. Think about the logic behind this. They knew the king liked Daniel and was going to promote him. So they got to use this trickery to get him to take Daniel down. But what do you think is going to end up happening to them? I mean, he's the king there, you're tricking the king into killing his friend. What do you think the king's going to want to do? What would you want to do if you're king? And you get tricked into this and find out these guys tricked you. Who do you think's going to the lion's den next, maybe? I guess they didn't think that through. They didn't care just as long as they took Daniel down with them. Who knows? Those who haven't submitted to Christ are subjected to a reprobate mind. So maybe they thought it through, maybe they didn't. So Darius put the decree in writing. He got tricked. He had an issue with pride. He no doubt wanted to have the kingdom unified. They may have convinced him that there were people who were disloyal and this is a way to weed them out. He bought it, took the bait. He gets snared, and worse yet, snared his friend. Now when Daniel learned the decree had been published, he went home to his upstairs room where the windows opened towards Jerusalem. 3 times a day he got down on his knees and prayed, giving thanks to his God, just as he had done before. Okay. When I looked at this years ago, I wondered, why couldn't Daniel have just done it in secret? You could pray to God in your head just as easily as you could in public. Well, you see, the problem with that is he had been habitually, 3 times a day, going out his window, facing Jerusalem, giving a witness to all who could see that he was devout and loving to his God. So if he does that, he implies to other people that he is obeying the edict and that he's been compromised. I mean, while it could have been understandable, it was important to Daniel that he let everybody know that it was God who gave him wisdom. It was God who helped him do well. It was God that helped him have this fine spirit to him. He wanted to make sure people knew that. And Daniel seems to be a little bit ahead of his time here, because later Jesus says in the New Testament, if you confess me before man, I'll confess you before my Father. If you deny me before man, I'll deny you before my Father. Are we gutsy enough to make a declaration of our faith knowing that it's going to get us arrested? Even a nasty death sentence? And Daniel didn't do anything more. He did what he had always habitually been doing. Three times a day, he got down on his knees and prayed, giving thanks to God, just as he had done before. Then these men went as a group and found Daniel praying and asking God for help. So they went to the king and spoke to him about his royal decree. Did you not publish a decree that during the next 30 days anyone who prays to any god or man except you, O king, will be thrown into the lion's den? The king answered, the decree stands in accordance with the laws of the Medes and the Persians, which cannot be repealed. Darius recognizes it. Then they said to the king, Daniel is one of the exiles from Judah. Pays no attention to you, O king, or to the decree you put in writing. He still prays 3 times a day. Think about that. They knew Daniel had been habitually doing this. They said, he pays no attention to you, O king. Daniel had been habitually paying attention to the king and being loyal to his God. He just chose not to be loyal to the king above his God. And this should have been a dead giveaway. He still is doing this. This should have been a red flag to Darius, if not at any other point, that this was a carefully crafted plan to take Daniel down. he still prays 3 times a day. When the king heard this, he was greatly distressed. He was determined to rescue Daniel and made every effort until sundown to save him. Then the men went as a group to the king and said to him, "Remember, O king, that according to the law of the Medes and Persians, no decree or edict that the king issues can be changed." Just rubbing it in his face as he's trying to save Daniel. At this point, the king would be absolutely galled with these men. He realizes he's been tricked. And one thing I would notice here is, here's what Darius' reaction is. Some version says that he was mad at himself. This version says he was greatly distressed. Darius realized he screwed up. Realized he was tricked. At some point, these guys are going to get it. They have to know it. So the king gave the order, and they brought Daniel and threw him into the lion's den. The king said to Daniel, "May your God, whom you serve continually, rescue you." Some versions say the king gives a declaration, "Your God, who you continually serve, will rescue you," that he had a statement of faith that he would. NIV says, "May he." Darius knew that Daniel's God had power. He knew that Daniel's God gave him wisdom. Daniel was legendary for God giving him wisdom. He says, "May your God, who you continually serve, rescue you." He's like, "I've done everything on my part, so it's in your God's hands." A stone was brought and placed over the mouth of the den, and the king sealed it with his own signet ring with the rings of his nobles, so that Daniel's situation might not be changed. Okay, this is interesting. They put Daniel into a den of lions that hadn't been fed in a while. Why does he have to do this? You could argue maybe he was trying to appeal to the other satraps to get them off of his back. Or maybe he believed God would save him, and he didn't want the satraps rescuing him from the den only to kill him by the sword. This is his way of saying, nobody touches this. Then the king returned to his palace and spent the night without eating and without any entertainment being brought to him, and he could not sleep. Gee, I wonder why. At the first light of dawn, the king got up and hurried to the lion's den. When he came near the den, he called to Daniel in an anguished voice, "Daniel, servant of the living God." What a way to address Daniel. Recognize that his God was the living God. He knew that his God was real. "Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God, whom you serve continually, been able to rescue you from the lions?" So Darius was open to the possibility this could happen. Daniel answered, "O king, live forever. Yeah, I've been loyal to you this whole time here. Contrary to what those other guys have been telling you, I'm wishing you to live forever. My God sent his angel, and he shut the mouths of the lions. They have not hurt me, because I was found innocent in his sight. Nor have I ever done any wrong before you, O king. This is proof I've been innocent before God and innocent to you. So God looked after me like you had hoped he would." The king was overjoyed and gave orders to lift Daniel out of the den. So the law was upheld. It just so happens the lions didn't kill him. Sad story I heard of a guy who had to get shocked 7 times on the electric chair. I believe this was in Michigan. I mean, this thing's powerful enough to nail you the first time, but it took the 7th attempt to kill this guy on death row. And I think 2 days after they killed him, they realized they got the wrong guy. So they passed a law in Michigan that if an electric chair or lethal injection fails to kill somebody, that they're to be released because it's a sign from God that the person was innocent and falsely accused. Well, here's an example of the electric chair failing. The king was overjoyed and gave orders to lift Daniel out of the den. And when Daniel was lifted from the den, no wound was found on him because he had trusted his God. At the king's command, the men who had falsely accused Daniel were brought in and thrown into the lion's den, along with their wives and children. Okay, in the book of Malachi, it says, "Never again shall children pay the price for their father's sins or fathers for their children's." This was the law of the Medes and the Persians at this time. Darius is upholding it. He's not condemned for it. So these guys are going to die, not only realizing that they not only got themselves killed, but they got their family and legacy killed so that they'd never again get revenge for their dad or their husbands. Along with their wives and children, and before they reached the floor of the den, the lions overpowered them and crushed all their bones. See, Daniel, they had to put a stone over him. He got to walk down slowly, and they had to seal it. They didn't even get the chance to do it. They never even made it to the floor. Those lions are super hungry. When it says they crushed their bones, it proves they're super hungry. Then King Darius wrote to all the peoples, nations, and men of every language throughout the land, "May you prosper greatly." So verses say, "Peace to everyone. I issue a decree that in every part of my kingdom people must fear and reverence the God of Daniel." Similar to what Nebuchadnezzar says, "You show him respect. If you say anything bad against him, you get torn limb from limb, your house gets turned to rubble." Well, he's commanding that everybody at least shows respect for the God of Daniel. Doesn't force everyone to convert, but commands that everybody shows respect to his God. "For he is the living God, and he endures forever. His kingdom will not be destroyed. His dominion will never end. He rescues and he saves. He performs signs and wonders in the heavens and on earth. He has rescued Daniel from the power of the lions." And not the other guys. So Daniel prospered during the reign of Darius and the reign of Cyrus the Persian. Okay, commentary I read on this said something very interesting. So secular history doesn't record a King Darius, but they mention a name of a guy, and I forget his name, who this writer believes may have been given the title Darius, which means holder of the scepter. So that King Darius may have actually had a different name recorded in secular history and was appointed by Cyrus to be an honorary king of a little area, but Cyrus was actually the head king of the Persians. This is the Medo-Persian Empire, and the Persians were, I guess, the most dominant, at least Cyrus the Persian was. So it says, "Daniel prospered during the reign of Darius and in the reign of Cyrus the Persian." Cyrus got to hear about him and know about this. So Daniel had a nice long life. And God got to use him as a witness for the kings of Babylon. And then when that kingdom got conquered by the Persians, they found out about it, and Daniel got to be a witness to them. So if you're ever taken out of your comfort zone, forced into a new position, job-wise, or maybe even if you do get kidnapped someday, I don't know what will end up happening to you, but Daniel was forced out of his land. He had been following God faithfully, but his country didn't. So he got taken out of the land. And God used him to be a witness to the kings that worshipped other gods that conquered them. Just like God used Joseph getting kidnapped to bring honor to God in Egypt and save the lives of his family and many other people. So be grateful to God for whatever position you're in. And that concludes Daniel chapter 6. So at least this week, let me know if you read this video. Text me any comments. I would say leave a comment in the box below, but I don't know if I'll get to read them. That's what most YouTubers do. But you guys have my number. And if any of you don't, who happen to be watching this video, I guess leave comments in the box below on your thoughts on this. So thank you all for watching, and have a good night.